I'm a growth person, so growth is the only evidence of life. So growth is evidence of life. So if you're not growing, you're not living.
Welcome to Island Influencers, where we share stories of successful business owners, experienced professionals, entrepreneurs, and community leaders based or with influence in the Isle of Man. This podcast is brought to you by Thornton Chartered Financial Planners, because great financial planning has the power to change your life. Now here's your host, Sharon Sutton.
In this latest episode of Island Influencers, I chat with the absolutely fascinating Jason Bissell. Jason's career is nothing short of extraordinary, from a small village in Somerset to becoming a leader in some of the world's most influential AI, tech and data companies. He's lived and worked across the globe helping companies expand in transformative ways, and now he's bringing his expertise and passion to the Isle of Man, where he's currently the chair of the UNESCO Biosphere Isle of Man board. Jason shares with me how his early experiences, especially with his stepfather, shaped his work ethic and drive. He explains how he became a pioneer in AI, data analytics and virtual reality, and how those industries have evolved over time. He recounts the key lessons he learnt from leading companies and also reflects in his transition from corporate leadership to strategic advising. He explains why he chose to move to the Isle of Man and shares his first impressions of the island. He also delves into his current role as chair of the UNESCO Biosphere Isle of Man board and why he believes in the power of collaboration, research and long-term thinking to drive sustainable progression. Throughout our conversation, Jason emphasised the importance of balancing economic development with environmental and community needs, sharing his vision for how the Isle of Man can position itself, and should position itself, as the global leader in sustainable innovation. So, here is Jason Bissell in episode 125 of Island Influencers. Enjoy. Welcome, Jason Bissell. I mean, how many times have we tried to meet?
Sounded embarrassed. I'm sorry. We made it.
We have made it, yes. I'm really excited to talk to you because I started doing research like I do for all my episodes, all my guests, and you have been a lot of places, haven't you? So, for the benefit of all our listeners, Jason comes with an amazing CV of AI and pioneering companies he's worked with all over the world, pretty much. So, without further ado, let's have your story.
I guess that's not where it started. That's where it ended.
Yeah. So how did you get here?
Yeah, I grew up in a little village in Somerset. It's quite extraordinary, really. There's only 2,000 people in the village, and looking from that perspective, couldn't quite possibly believe or imagine that I would have, been the sort of CEO or SVP for some of the biggest tech, data and AI companies on the planet.
Well, somebody's got to be.
Yeah, but it's still extraordinary when I look at it from that perspective. They say, we didn't have a computer at home, and we didn't, my parents weren't technical in the slightest, and the internet hadn't even been born at that point. So looking at it from that angle, 17-year-old Jason, extraordinary, and a lot of luck involved, but tenacious hard work. So I think my work ethic has never really changed. I think 4 or 5 jobs by the time I was 16.
Amazing.
Cutting paper at the chippy and sweeping the carpenter's floor. And
well, what do your mum and dad do?
My mum's a mum, and my dad left me when I was 6 years old. So and so that and then my stepfather came in when I was 11, and he introduced a whole new world to me, which was really the balance between sort of working class and middle to upper class. So he came in from a middle to upper class background, and my mum was working class, and so had this extraordinary shift in experience when I was about 11, 12 years old, that there was this other world of people with money and, silver service and such like, and etiquette and all of that good stuff. So I really amazing grounding, because I had that shift and those two different perspectives of, you got to work. And then there's other people that still have to work, but they work in a different way. And
yes, it's very very impressionable at that age.
Yeah, very.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, so he really, my father, who's my stepfather, who was my dad really. He said, you've got to drink coffee with the locals and hold court with the kings, and I didn't know what holding court with the kings meant. 11 years old, but he taught me those things and taught me that knowledge and learning is the most important thing, and learning about people was the most critical thing, Jason. And so my dad, I hold those values very strongly.
Yeah, that's really nice, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
good for you. So what happened when you left school? You went off to college?
Yeah, so my stepfather wanted me to go down the traditional academic route. My working class background said what you really want to do is you want to go into the working route. And so what I ended up doing is compromising. So I ended up working as an apprentice in a paper mill.
Great.
Recycling old newspapers and magazines into the squiggly bit in the cardboard. The most undervalued piece of paper that you'll find on the planet. It reinforces the box, but you don't know it.
Now, what we would do with that without Amazon, hey?
Incredible. And so I was looking at a 30-year trajectory to become a director in that company, and very traditional manufacturing background. And the true story is, I actually got released from that company in 1990 because I went to a Bob Dylan concert and then told them I was sick. I was 18 years old, Yeah. All friends phoned me up, taught me a big lesson, always be really honest, in work sense, and don't sort of phone in sick when you're not. But again, I think these are really important sort of turning points in my life, and so I then.
What do you mean you were found out?
Yeah, on the Wednesday I went to the Bob Dylan concert on the Monday, and then it was 1990, so the economy wasn't great, paper wasn't making a lot of money. I was an expensive management trainee. They were sending me to Aberdeen University. And it was a good opportunity for them to sort of tidy up the books at that point because the industry was in trouble, and I gave them that opportunity. Really, it was unfortunate,
Ouch.
but I that's the only time that's ever happened to me. But it happens, and so being released at that age, then what am I going to do?
Yeah, how did you feel?
Completely lost if I look at it, because in Somerset. Similar to the Isle of Man, if you think about it in those ways, it was, London wasn't accessible, and the rest of the world, and the only way you become accessible is by going to university. And all of my friends, had gone off to university, and then all of a sudden I was at university, and that happened. So quite profound, actually. So then you've got to find your own way out, and that's where am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I decided to go traveling for a little, earn some money and go traveling for a little bit, traveled around the world a little bit, Israel and the Middle East. And then I came back, I thought, what am I going to do next? And
well, that's quite a stretch to go to those countries, Why did you choose to go to Israel?
That's a good question, actually. At that time in the and this is 89, 90, people were going to the kibbutz, and the travelers were doing that. Some of my friends were doing that, and they were going to work in the kibbutz. I thought that was kind of interesting. The religious context, and I grew up in a Christian family. So just sort of this idea of that actually Jerusalem existed was quite abstract to me. Why not I go there and find out? And the Middle East was really. My dad was working in Saudi Arabia as an expat.
Yeah, it was quite dodgy back then. Well, it's just being dodgy again, but
very difficult. And so I went to the Hebron and to Haifa and to the West Bank, and
there's all sorts of terrorism going on. Did you see any sort of troubles? Or
well, I got so I went down to Egypt, and my sort of explorer mindset says, I'll go wherever I want to go, kind of thinking. And I got down to Egypt, and I can't remember the name of the town now, but the British consulate was saying it was high risk, and then because they'd shot a German tourist, one of the terrorists had shot a German tourist about 6 weeks prior to me going down there. They said, don't go to this area because it's a bit risky. And I went there. I didn't really understand what that risk really meant coming from Somerset, and then
guns and missiles.
Well, it was, yeah. So I got picked up by the police and armed guards, and they asked me to sort of they escorted me essentially safely out of the place. So I didn't know what all that meant really. I was 18, 19 years old. Well, a gun. I'd never seen a gun before in my life.
Oh, you don't, do you, in the UK?
So yeah, it was quite an experience. But just listening to people, listening to and I don't want to get too much into this because it is, sort of quite challenging politics, but sitting down with the Palestinians actually and having tea with them and talking to them, and same with the Israelis, and just getting the different perspectives. And that was extraordinary at that age, just to sort of listen to two perspectives on the same story. And both were quite upset with each other, if you like. So it was...
Good word, listen and perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's again. That's back to my dad's like, go and explore and listen to people and don't judge. Just listen and explore. And that was very, very interesting experience. So then I came back to the UK. My wife now, my then ex-girlfriend. I met her back in London because we were young when we were young. We were going out with each other. But I saw her in London. I just fell immediately in love with her, and that was the end of my traveling. It wasn't my plan. I thought I was just going to go there. I was going to go to the ski season and a whole bunch of things. But Claire, I can remember seeing her in London, and that was right. You are the one for me, and we've been together ever since. So that's part of the journey, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know if it's appropriate to share that story right now, but on your LinkedIn profile is an incredibly sweet post about the two of you. Oh, it's your story. You tell it.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I spent 30 years in corporate life, and so that posting is about us creating a corporate experience for our family and friends, taking all 65 of them to a place, and I'll get to that point in a moment. But so Claire and I, we grew up together in Somerset, and fortunately I came back from traveling and we reconnected, and we've got 3 amazing children, or 20, 23 and 28. They're not children anymore. But Claire and I, we had a child very, very young. This is a defining moment. So when I was 23, and Lily, who's now 28, amazing experience, but it wasn't really what we were expecting to have a child at that young age. Glad we did, and we're both very happy for it. But we also then thought, we should get married. Really, we ought to do the right thing and go and get married. So we started planning. And then we thought, oh, God, we need another child, don't we, at some point? Because it was just getting tricky organising the wedding and just families and where we're going to seat people. And it all got a little bit tricky. And then we were invited to a business trip in Las Vegas.
I'll let you do.
And we went over there. Claire, I don't fancy going to Las Vegas twice, Claire, so why don't you come with me for the weekend, and then I'll do the business trip after. So Claire and I were there. And then whilst we were there, we just thought, wouldn't it be funny if we got married in Vegas? Just like all this wedding stuff's getting a bit tricky,
Yeah.
We're going to have another kid, and we were just joking about it. And the next day, we were in a taxi, and the taxi driver said, first time in Vegas, we're just talking to him, and I said, "Oh, how easy is it to get married here?" And he said, "It's pretty straightforward. You go down to the place, you get yourself a certificate.
Classic.
You find yourself
the taxi driver.
Yeah, exactly." And he just turned around to me, and I said, "How are they open? Are they open now, or what time do they open?" He said, he just turned around at the car and he just said, and Claire was sat next to me. He said, "They're open now. You want to go?" I looked at us, Claire, shrugged my shoulders. It's like $50 to get a license. I shrugged my shoulders, went, "All right," as a tourist experience. But so we did that, and then we got married.
Yep.
We found the one that they got married to in Friends, and
oh right, it wasn't the Elvis place.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was
100%. I mean, we want plastic flowers, we want the whole thing. So we had Jesse, who was our Elvis singer, sing "Viva Las Vegas" to us, and Reverend Stone was the Reverend. It was actually, he said some very nice words, and but we laughed for like 48 hours. We just had so much fun.
Brilliant.
And then we always said, look, we've got to do that properly. So then we went off to Singapore and lived there for 13 years and traveled around and whatnot. And we always said, look, at some point we've got to get married. And the posting on the LinkedIn that you mentioned was exactly that. We said, all right, we booked a Masseria in Puglia in the south of Italy, the whole thing. Said, all right, no one's gonna have to want for anything for 3 days.
Nice.
They're gonna drink, eat, dance, and have fun. And it was a combination of it was Claire and I getting blessed by our 28-year-old daughter, or Lily. It was all our family and friends that we love and care dearly about. It was my 50th, it was my son's 21st, and my younger son's 18th. So they all invited 5 friends each. They only had 5. And it was just amazing. Just a reconfirmation of everything that's most important in life, which is family and friends.
Yeah, it was inspiring. I love that.
It was awesome. Yeah, thank you, Sharon.
No, not at all. So back to your back to your corporate journey then. So you mentioned in passing there that you've gone out to Singapore, but you started your career in the UK, and from what I can see, you were involved in transformation software and VR, right, in the 90s.
That's interesting. Actually, you picked that up. It was, so we came back. I got serious, got a job. So this is 93, and virtual reality was a thing because what we were doing at that time, I was working for transformation, and we were providing virtual environments for essentially the Ministry of Defense. So doing synthetic theory of war, kind of heads-up cockpit displays, and Eurofighter at the time was an idea. So what we were doing then is providing virtual environments, 3D environments for those companies to come together to work out how to build that plane. And the same with the Mini. The Mini that's on the road today was in concept stage. So we worked with BMW to be able to identify, ways of which they can use virtual reality to save, essentially, make it more efficient. So I remember the time it takes 10 clay models to get a car, and we could knock one or two of those off. They were about £50,000 per clay model, and just by using virtual reality. It was PlayStation hadn't arrived then. Virtual environments were really rare. We were doing minimal invasive hip replacements with Johnson & Johnson using virtual. So yeah, really.
Was Super Mario even on there?
No, nothing. Nothing. Yes, we were not just, we're a bit beyond Pong, the table tennis game, but we weren't into anything 3-dimensional really in gaming at that point.
No.
So yeah, it was extraordinary, and then. From that, I got quite aggressively pursued by a company called Business Objects that I'd never heard of. And what they did is they provided a layer for human beings, business people, to be able to access these complex things called databases. And so you could then ask it, how much sales did I make, or how many people do I employ, or whatever the question is, but using sort of non-technical language, so business language.
So the very earliest sort of CRMs.
Well, no, yeah, that CRM would be your operational data, but you stick on top of that some kind of analytic layer.
Yeah,
and that was very early days. So data warehouses and all those things were just coming out, and this is 98.
Yeah.
So they've been around a little while, but the realization that you've got data, that you've got stuff that you put in, and you've got data that you take out. So the beginning of AI, when you think about that, what you're seeing is your data can be used to make predictions. Well, where is my data? Well, I haven't got a CRM thing, so I need to make one of them. I need to put stuff in first before I can take it out.
Yeah.
Just input output. That's all it is. And so 1998 is. They had their own AI. That we were providing AI then, artificial intelligence, in 1998. We were doing data mining, so taking all of your existing data and identifying patterns in there for fraud or for things you can't quite see as a human. Work out where our optimal customers are. So that regression analysis, which was using those models to do that. So that was my first introduction to AI.
Gosh. And pretty soon someone cherry-picked you and took you to the Far East, or was it something that you pursued?
Oh, right. That was so that was Click. So that was in 2005, QLIK. So I set them up in the UK after Business Objects, and so was the first guy on the ground for them. There were about 100 people when I joined them, 11 million in revenues. Sorry. Yeah, 11 million in revenues. We took them to 329 in 7 years.
Wow.
2,000 customers to 28,000 customers. At one point, what was interesting about that, Sharon, is that the sort of your learning patterns is that we were acquiring every single working day at one point 16.4 new companies.
How on earth?
Just an extraordinary efficiency of acquisition. You really learn about people's behaviors about when you're doing that many. It's kind of learning, and then you start seeing patterns and how people value things and how they buy things, and
it's fascinating.
It was wild. I mean, I guess one of the luckiest experiences I've had in my life to be able to really see thousands of people. We were lots of meetings every day, asking questions like, well, how do you run your business? Whether, what are your KPIs is the corporate language, but, how do you run your business? What's important? Well, what is cash flow for you? What does your profit and loss look like? What's on your balance sheet? And then go into what does that mean to HR? What does that mean to finance? What does that mean to marketing and sales and operations? And so just because data's data and how you use it to run your business is different in every single business. So, about 28,000 companies using your data system for analyzing.
Yeah. Well, everybody needs to know their numbers in business or what you're doing in business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even personally, actually, I track myself in.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we have a job. Oh, very cool. And so from there, what did you were in Singapore, I think, at this point?
Yeah. So Click was, so we set them up in the UK. And then Lars, the CEO, came to me in 2008 and said, look, we're expanding all over the world right now, and would you be interested in setting up Asia Pacific for us? We haven't got anything out there at the moment. Okay. From Somerset to where? Yeah. Hong Kong, Singapore, or Australia? You choose, Jason. I'm like, okay, where's Singapore? I don't know where that is, really.
What did you think of it?
So my dad had been an expat, and he lived in Saudi Arabia, and he'd lived in West Africa, and he'd also my stepfather, so he'd also lived in Cyprus, and he said to me, the only way you learn about anything, in terms of culture and language, is live in the place. So I was completely ready for that personally, but at that point I had 3 children.
Yeah, I was going to say. So
we had to sit them down and have a conversation with them, because I totally believe in agency. The children, even at a young age, have an option to say no. If they don't want to, then we have to at least consider that.
How old were they at the time?
Lily was 12, 13.
Yeah, and made a lot of friends in place at that.
Youngest was 4, so
fairly decent friendship group for a 12-year-old.
And we gave her a year to know that it was going to happen. So she basically didn't do any schooling for a year. If she's listening now, Lily, but yeah, no, that's true. But yeah, but we give them the choice, and so that they can get to know. We didn't just oik them and take them there. Same with Claire as well. Gave them a year to sort of think about it. I went out there a little bit ahead of them, spent 6 months making sure everything was safe and ready for them.
Yeah.
Because then if we needed to pull the cord on it, we could have done. So I didn't just jump at it. But I personally, emotionally, I was like, I'm in. Let's do it. But then from a family point of view, making sure they're adjusted and.
But seeing you're happy was probably the confidence they needed.
Yeah. It's interesting with the children. There was another time when I got invited to run a Chinese company. So I ran a 1,000-employee, pure Chinese company, born in Shanghai. I came there COO after.
That be SVP Global?
Yeah, for eBao Tech.
Yeah.
What they do is they replace. They're a policy administration systems company, so they replace policy
insurance policies,
all of them. Yeah, right across from life right the way across to P&C.
Okay.
And they were the only, and they still are they're probably the only independent global vendor that provides PAS systems for all insurance industry. Yeah,
the enormous.
Yeah, we did a 54 country rollout with AIG.
Yeah.
Extraordinary. So every policy is different. Everyone's a snowflake. You know how it is. Especially when you get into commercial. So, but yeah,
we don't have any snowflakes.
No, of course, but productizing the insurance. So the point I was making there was about the kids is that when I went there, and that was a tough time actually. I wasn't successful, I'd say, with eBao. I know where my strengths are and my weaknesses. I wouldn't say that was one of my greatest moments. But I sat them all down and said, look, I'm going to run this Chinese company, and they were like, that's just you, Dad. And I asked them what they thought. They're a little bit older then. They said, that's what you do, Dad. Go and do it. Actually, they'd counseled me a little bit better at that time. But anyway, it was an interesting company.
Yeah, he seemed to have done okay though. A few companies around there from looking at your LinkedIn profile. It was Datamere, Talent, Databricks.
Yeah, they're all data companies. So this is where, when you know your wheelhouse is data and AI. That's why that insurance one didn't quite work out for me.
As it stood out on your.
It was an unusual one. So with Datamere, if for those who know the sort of data industry, when the big data thing happened, and that wasn't about big data as a way that you compute and process data. Datamere were right out at the forefront of that. They were a pioneer. So they were doing all the sort of Facebook stuff before it became normal, before it became cloud, before the cloud arrived. The big data thing was really quite a formation of cloud.
Big in-house servers, that sort of thing, do you mean?
Yeah, so the simplest way to describe it is they take a piece of data and they distribute it into multiple servers, and then they retrieve it from those multiple servers and make sense of it. And that's what happens in when you use sort of Amazon or Microsoft in the cloud. The reason they've scaled is because of this ability to distribute the compute across low cost hardware. So you don't just have to buy one really big box; you can have them distributed, and they were pioneering. So that whole data, how can you then companies stopped throwing their data away, because it costs money to hold data and to process it. And so Datamere were right at the very beginning of that. And then Burst was a similar company. They used cloud at that point to be able to distribute that data. And all of a sudden we're in the stage where we are now, where you've got companies like OpenAI, using large scale hardware. And it started then. So it started at the big data and then the cloud.
So it's been around a lot longer than most of us think. Yeah. So what was the big change for you that you went from, I think I've got you here as Gains Insight, where you went from CEO to then board advisor? I mean, that's quite a big pivot. So tell us about that.
So 3 years ago, I decided, so Claire unfortunately got rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune disease. Way too young for her to have. I mean, you can have it at any stage of life, but it's a health challenge. And so we were in Singapore, and I decided then I didn't need to work anymore, and you should retire. And so retire in the sense of choose to do what I want to do, as opposed to have to work for somebody. That's what I mean by retire.
Do you mean more control your own time?
Yeah. Well, just choose to say what I want to do when I want to do it, on my terms and not on other people's terms,
and with who you want.
Yeah. Precisely. Cool. So the CEO role with Gain Insights was just to help a friend out structure his company, essentially. It was a 250-man IT consulting company in India, and it was just whilst I was working out where I was going to live in the world.
Yeah, because you had a few other roles as well. I see you Untapped AI, IntelliGauge, Coach CRM.
Yeah, those are all investments.
And how?
So I like transparency.
Yeah.
So I use LinkedIn for that, and so.
So if you're advising on a board, you just put it there, Newson, Russell. Yeah. Yeah.
So those are investments, and I advise. So I sit on the board in those companies, and I put funds in.
Yeah. No, it's why wouldn't you put your money where your mouth is?
And I think people, sort of maybe I share too much, but I just prefer to be open about it, and then you know where you stand with me.
Well, you also have a responsibility legally if you're a member of the board, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So that transition from operator to advisor to the most recent appointment, which is the chair of the Biosphere, that transition's quite difficult, actually. Because I'm an operator, my hands and my sleeves are rolled up.
You seem pretty good at adapting from your story that you've told so far. I mean, goodness me, from the Bob Dylan concert, you seem to have come miles and miles and miles.
But it takes time, and it's actually hard. I think, retirement isn't as easy as what you think it is. The idea of decompressing and switching context is a really difficult human trait. I'm an ICF accredited coach as well, so I went through the International Independent Coaching Federation. I forget which one it is. I did my sort of 100 hours of coaching.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's amazing. Coaching is the ultimate, and because you don't do anything, all you do is ask good questions and in a safe place, and that transition's really difficult, because if you're an operator, you want to grab the steering wheel, where you just got to let them.
But you can't coach yourself, can you?
No, Socrates. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So exactly, Socrates. You can't answer your own questions. Fascinated by all of that side of life as well. How we operate.
Yeah. No, I did this one, the Know Thyself, which is that's another. Is it Aristotle? Is it Know Thyself?
I don't know.
Was it Socrates?
Socrates. Yeah. Yeah, it is Socrates. Yeah. Because you can't know yourself by asking yourself questions.
Somebody. What is making up about that?
Yeah, it's fascinating, and that's an interesting transition. Board advisor, coach from operator. It's taken a long time, actually. It's 4 years, I'd say, of
Yeah.
When I retired, a friend of mine, an Untapped CEO of Untapped, fascinating company. I could spend hours talking about them as well. But Kendall Palmer, she described what I was doing in my retirement as the fertile void. This void you're creating, Jason, that's fertile without any agenda. And that's really difficult to explain to people. But that's what I've been doing for the last few years, is just creating this space that's of nothing, but things grow. A biosphere being one of them.
Yeah.
They just grow. And you've got to decide, to keep the space, not to do anything about it.
And what's been the deciding factor that's allowed that void to be fertile? What do you say?
Genuine curiosity and interest in people, like just learning about people. And then the second dynamic of that is without agenda. That's really hard.
Yeah.
Because you can learn about people, but then you go, oh, that's interesting. I could do something with that. And you've got to create that space of, it's like stimulus and response.
Yeah,
there's the stimulus. Which
we'll all have our own sort of mindset of what that means because we've made our own version up where that's not necessarily it, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I meet you and you tell me something. I then have to create space. That's the dynamic, and it's really difficult. I fail 90% of the time on that. It's so difficult.
We're all work in progress.
I just want to fix it. I want to do it. I want to solve it. I want to. Yeah, it's very. It's anyway. That's
brilliant. So that's a major transition for you, going with Claire's diagnosis and to flip a switch and to do this. That's a wonderful thing to do, and our gain to have you sharing the UNESCO Biosphere. But why the Isle of Man? Why did you choose, from all the places you've been to and lived, what made you come here?
So I'll be honest. I'm not going to be anything other than that. So we could have gone anywhere in the world. And we thought about everywhere. Claire wanted to be close to home, which home for us is England. And for health and personal reasons. And Claire was the one who promoted the Isle of Man, so I'm not too sure. We lived in Chester before we moved to Singapore, so
you know what the Northwest is like.
Similar sounding accent, I've got to say. And when I know, but it is. I'll get myself into trouble now if I'm careful.
And horizontal rain.
Yeah, vertical horizontal rain. Yeah, love horizontal rain. So Claire was. So I was like, well, I actually liked Sri Lanka. Because the problem I had as a capital gains challenge, I'm not looking to make income, so it was how do I manage my capital gains and potential inheritance? So I was looking at that as a sort of problem to solve, and then after I've solved that problem, what location? And so the Isle of Man came out quite clearly as a place that could solve the first problem. But then, is it somewhere I'd want to live? Is it somewhere I want the kids to come and grow up? I don't want to just do it for tax reasons. I want to live there. So I came here, and my first impressions weren't great. Physically, I came on my own. Claire stayed at home, and it looked a bit tired walking down one of the streets. And I won't say which one because people listen.
That's a fair comment.
Looks a bit tired. Looks a bit
unloved.
Yeah. Love the environment. Love the sea. Mountain biking's great, and oh god, it's beautiful. But the buildings look a bit tired. So I phoned Claire up and I said, I'm not too sure. I think I'm going to go down to Guernsey on Friday and see what it's like down there, and I'll let you know. And then I went to the Eagle Labs in Douglas, and met some people there, and ended up getting invited to drinks with Bex from Chamber.
She's a lovely human, isn't she?
Yeah, amazing. So we had this. It was sort of serendipity or fortuitous, but they had their annual drinks thing in Jack's. I think it was. Was it Jack's?
Somewhere.
And then Bex introduced me to Carol Glover. Like, oh, Carol, you think the same as me? This is amazing. She just like a brain exploding in front of me, and we had this really
sounds like Carol.
Yeah, just this amazing chat with her and Bob Marley and a whole bunch of other things, and then Lisa Caron as well. And then they invited me to the digital conference the next day, and they told me about this thing called the Island Plan, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. Because I'm a growth person, so growth is the only evidence of life. So growth is evidence of life. So if you're not growing, you're not living.
Yeah, 100%.
So I heard and I saw the startup thing. And I said to Claire, look, one of my goals when I retired was to give, to help people like me when I was 17 to realize that there's equality of opportunity and there is opportunity for you. And so when Lisa, Karen and Bex explained this island plan, I started doing some research, and I'm just love learning. So I'm sort of looking at what the island is. Okay. And then I went to the Digital Isle conference, and Lara Axel presented there, and I thought, he's quite an honest chap, sort of putting his numbers out there. We didn't do this, we did this, and percentages. This is really interesting. And so I phoned Claire up after that, because it was the next day after that, the drinks, and I phoned Claire up and said, I'm going to cancel my flight to Guernsey. Let's just do it. Let's move to the island. It's, the land is beautiful, the housing, we can find something, but the people are amazing. Like, they're just so cool. I can't quite believe. I said, and I think I can add some value here. I think I could do something to help, because they don't have many tech people that I've met yet. No, there's not many data people, Claire, and
some,
yeah, exactly.
Need more.
Yeah, so I thought, okay, well then let's see if I can move here. And then I bought a place in Onken, and in a couple of weeks, I bought the whole experience was about 2 weeks I spent here. And it was sunny. It was one of the, those Isle of Man days when it's just absolutely gorgeous. It's not always like that, I know.
Well, we're recording this in February. Let's say it's been a while.
Yeah.
Well, no, we've had some nice days. I think it was all right. But
isn't it nice now that, it's getting light in the morning, and, it's not dark at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Not through those 6 weeks. Yeah. Which isn't bad, actually. If you go to somewhere like Norway or, they're very happy.
Yeah. It's that, but it's an amazing place. The air is clean, and I love it. So yeah, I'm very happy to be here.
Oh, brilliant! Great. Well, thank you for sharing all that. And I want to ask you lots of other things. So for example, when you were growing up, what was, is it for you that moment where your stepdad opened your eyes to the world? And how you perceive it now. So, what was your earliest memory of money? Was it around then, and sort of how was it growing up from then?
We never had any, actually, really. Now, my stepfather, I said, came from middle to upper, but my grandfather was with Billy Butlin when they started the holiday camps. So they opened up a holiday camp with 2,000 people down in the southwest of England. That's how they got down from Yorkshire to the southwest of England, and that just crashed. So Dad didn't have that lineage anymore, but he had the background, and they invested it all in that, and it all disappeared. So I understand the tourist industry. When people talk about the Isle of Man and what it was, I go, look, I get that.
Yeah,
I really do. So we didn't have anything, and so there was no silver spoon. There was nothing coming down to me. Like there was nothing. And no, we classify ourselves as the sandwich generation, where I look after my parents and I look after my children. And so I had to go and create wealth. I can't keep saying I had nothing, but we had nothing.
Yeah.
Both on Claire's side and mine. So what money meant to me as a 17-year-old is that we've got to create opportunity, because I knew what it was, because my dad explained it to me and talked about it. His life when he was younger. He went to boarding school, and I didn't even know what a boarding school was till my dad came along. And so all of that opportunity that he described to me, I thought, okay, for my children, because my real dad left so young, I want to create that for them. I want to create for my 3 children the opportunity to have choice. And that's all wealth. That's all money meant to me.
It is. So what does being wealthy or rich mean to you? What are those words? Choice.
Is no more than that.
Yeah.
It's choice. You can choose to give it away. You can choose to keep it. You can choose to protect it, whatever your position is, defensively, offensively. And it's just choice. And once you've got choice, then you have agency. And when you have agency, you have a good feeling in you.
Mm.
If it's more than that, if you think it's a material object in my mind, or if you think it's about how much money you've got, I've never been interested in that ever. And so, what my dad said to me was equality of opportunity. All right, so it's not equal rights. It is the opportunity should be made equal to everyone, and the only way you do that is working. So he taught me that, and all of a sudden, people will put these things called pounds or dollars into your bank account, and then they can accumulate, and you can invest in them. You can invest with them, but that I've never been interested in it. I just actually don't like money, which is a dangerous thing to say.
Well, it's just a man-made substance. It's
Yeah.
convenient and
It's a currency.
divisive and lots
It's
of
an
things.
exchange.
Yeah.
It's an exchange of value. That's all it is.
Yes, but we have so many emotional hang-ups by it, don't we?
Well, and people get attached to it, and I I've done a bit of sort of breath work, if you like, and meditation and such like, and I'm not attached to it.
No, good. So
Yeah.
it's a healthy way to be.
Yeah.
Healthy. Have you? All the things you've done in your life so far, what's been the most fulfilling for you?
Children.
Fantastic.
Always.
Yeah.
Like, I learned so much from them because they were so, going to work and running a 1,000 people company, that's easy. But waking up in the morning with unpredictable little mites that just will do whatever, and they'll do literally, in any direction. You can't work them out, and you never will. And you realize that it's about humans and people are unpredictable, and you learn the most from children, I think. And just, when Lily was born, just this moment of looking at this little, at that point, helpless human being who's now 28 years old and independently living in London, and that relates to business and money as well. So if you I think about the three stages of children, which is when they're completely dependent on you, when they're interdependent, and when they're independent. Same in business. When you start up a company, it's completely dependent on you.
Yeah.
And eventually it becomes independent of you. So, if Coca-Cola is no longer the founder's business anymore. It's an entity in its own right. It's completely independent of its ownership. Yeah. Of course, it has beneficial ownership from a legal point of view and all that good stuff. But they come, and that's what children do as well. And I think some people get a bit confused about that. And so I learned those things about how do you grow a business from watching and learning from the children, because at some point they've got to become completely independent. So your brand, all of that sort of stuff they've got to know what they are and who they are, what their values are, and what they're, why they're on the planet and how they are. Same with the business.
Yeah, I mean, it is. But I'm sensing it's how is it letting go when they eventually become independent? Mine's 18. I know it's getting to that. Oh my God,
it's amazing. No, because I celebrate that. I really do. I absolutely.
Break my heart.
No, well, so Claire's the same.
Yeah.
Claire, my wife, but the more independent they are, the more happy I am. Like I said, I didn't go to boarding school or anything. My youngest went to boarding school, and the other two went to schools in Singapore. But George went independently at 12 years old to Millfield because he was an athlete, and I was so proud of him that he flew to England on his own.
Wow.
At 12 years old, and because I knew that means he's going to be a stronger, independent child when he's older, and so that's me being I selfishly stay here. I want you. I don't want you to. But so I've done to.
No, it's fine. No, it's you're coaching me well for being prepared. So for any existing or aspiring business owner, what would be your number one tip?
Know your limits.
Yeah.
Know your boundaries, know your limits, because it's that disassociation thing, that attachment. It's really difficult, isn't it? When do you need to be in the business, or when do you need to be on the business, and when do you need to be out of the business?
Yeah, it's tremendous. Yeah, you're right.
It's really difficult. That's the hardest thing. The same with the children. When am I, meddling with their lives? And that's the hardest thing. I mean, cash flow and all that usual stuff. I mean, those blah 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 almost. Go and read the books on that. Accounting 101. But that's because it's this emotional and logical relationship is really so kind of know your limits is when you say get your boundaries right, and that's hard.
Yeah. What do you do to relax now that when you're not in the void and you're not being what's the word?
The fertile void.
Fertile void.
Things aren't, yeah.
Yeah. What do you do to keep your life in balance?
I was going to the gym every single day. I play a bit of golf, and I love surfing, which is one of the downsides of the island. There's not great surf. I mean, I know you can.
No, it's not. I was going to say it's the wrong clothes.
Yeah,
but
yeah, it's not quite. But
good dry suit.
Walking, I love going up Snæfell, and
You mentioned mountain bike, and what's your favourite?
This is the crazy thing. I came here because of mountain bike. I haven't been out on it. It's actually
It was difficult. There's so many storms lately. A lot of the forests. So
not as much as I'd like to have done. I've come to a realization after 3 years, I actually like work. So now relaxing for me is working.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting.
Like doing a bit of consulting.
Yeah, yeah, and more, and it's getting, and I'm getting in a I can do it way or not way, doing more and more work. So I've got to be careful I don't get back into what I was, 3 years ago, it was just 78 hours a week or whatever.
So how are you going to create that environment for a balance?
Anybody's got any tips? I don't know yet. Yeah. I've got an ice bath at home and a sauna and stuff, so I can like do that sort of stuff, but that all that does is fuel my hunger to want to do more, because it just. So
have you got a coach then?
I do actually. Yeah, I have an executive coach, a Japanese guy, amazing guy, Takeshi Yoshida, and Takeshi is extraordinary. I've had multiple coaches in my time actually, and they've all been. I don't know what I want to say about their coaches, but they've all been pretty extraordinary. But that outside looking in, that Socrates thing is so powerful. My kids have had them as well. I've given the opportunity to have coaches. Some of the three of them, I won't mention their names now. One or two of them like them more than the others, but the ones who have taken on that external coach has been they've enjoyed it. So yeah, so I don't have I've got at the moment I've gone from 100% to 0 over 3 years to getting back up to 100% in terms of work. So I've got the opportunity to choose not to, and I think the way that I'm boundarying that at the moment, kind of boundaries around it, is I know what my strengths are, my weaknesses are, and I know what I want to apply myself to, and I want to work with good people, and I want to learn. If those two things are in there, then the boundaries are off. If they're good people, and how do you find that out? Well, through working with them for some period.
Sure. But it was about keeping life in balance. So,
but that's okay. Then I'm just enjoying myself. If work is taking up 80% of my time and I'm working with good people and I'm learning, then it's not work.
Yeah, I'm still a bit concerned that you haven't been out on your mountain bike yet.
Yeah, it's true.
So when are you going to do that by?
Yeah, it's a great question, great coach. It's making me accountability coaching, but I feel comfortable that I've got a grip on that at the moment. But I do worry that I do lose grip on it. So I've not been to the gym since the 4th of December, which is not good. And I was going every single day.
Yeah.
So
how are you going to start going back in once a week or something? Or?
I've got some specific dates in 20th of February, 5th of March, and others. I'm going through a decision making process at the moment, so I'm refining and reducing.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. My personal trainer was just away for 10 days, and I was so lazy. I just need him for my accountability.
Yeah, everyone needs it. Everyone needs it.
So what's a favourite trip you've ever taken? Maybe you care to share that?
Well, Puglia was amazing. We talked about that earlier.
You did.
Gosh, it's really difficult. The 3 kids, we've all taken them on different holidays, like one to one or 2 to 1. Okay. Yeah, we don't always go away as a family because they're all different things. And so I have to say one for each of the children, if it's okay. My favourite trip with Lily would be going to Canada. Me and my wife and Lily went across Canada from east to west coast. That was amazing.
Yeah.
My favourite trip with Henry would be when me and him went to Bali, and it had snapper on the beach that he reminds everyone. And we just it was just absolutely amazing. My favourite trip with George was when he went to play football in the US. And going across from Connecticut to New York and hanging out in New York. So yeah, they've all got different one-to-one holidays. And then as a family, the Puglia one, you can't beat it. It was amazing. I mean, 3 days with family and friends. So I won't cover that ground again.
No,
beautiful.
It was
extraordinary.
No, I'll let you off with that. Thank you. And it's very poignant to where we are. But what are the best things about living in the Isle of Man for you now? And
people,
yeah,
top of the list.
Yeah.
People here are really quite extraordinary, and I know this sort of trade law and some of the language.
There's a bit of that.
Yeah, but I like that. I like the heritage and the integrity that you have on heritage. The sea is there's something mystical about the land, isn't there? There's some sort of green emeraldy, magical, fairies, and that comes from the land, and then the people sort of adopt those things. So I love living where I live, I'd still live up in Onken, going down to Laxey and, you know, Peel, and it just the land is just so rich of goodness and yeah.
So in your time of being here, though, have you identified specific challenges that we have here and what we can do about them?
Am I allowed to go there?
Yeah, you are allowed to go there. That's the whole point of this, is to be constructively positive.
So it's a beautiful place. So I spent 13 years in Singapore. Singapore is the same size rock as the Isle of Man, literally the same size. And now they've grown their island by 20% through land reclamation. So they're now bigger than us land-wise, but they were same sort of similar size rock. And Singapore was born in 1965. So the Prime Minister's son used to work for me, Sien Lee's son, Hua Yu Lee.
Good grief.
And, you know, I kind of studied a lot around how they did that. And you can be negative about it, but I'm not going to be. There's lots of things that people talk about with Singapore. But on the positive, they took this little rock from a little fishing village in 1965 to a $1.7 trillion of cash reserves.
It's phenomenal.
That's money in the bank. That's not deficit. That's cash. So I think it's the 5th largest cash reserves in the world, or something like that. It's got some great stats in there. So you come from there, and then you move to, you know, from Somerset, which is, don't know anything about politics, don't know anything about, you know, the companies, and then you go off and you do that, and you go to Singapore, and you come to the Isle of Man, and you say, guys, you got the same potential.
Yeah. Sometimes I think we just need to believe it.
Yeah, and so that's a belief system, and sometimes to say that you believe in something confidently. I believe the Isle of Man is the best at something. Is not a fast follower. That's a leading position, and so that strength of belief on the island, sometimes it's missing, and it makes me a little sad, because I see something that maybe other people don't see, that you've got this amazing opportunity, and you've got to be careful with it. You don't want to exploit it. You want to manage it and be careful with it. And so bits that are missing, you know, the political structures is beautiful, like really is. Me and my dad used to talk about this sort of proportional representation and, you know, democracy and how it works. And, you know, the House of Keys and the structure is really amazing, because what it genuinely does, and I know people are going to argue with me on this, but it genuinely looks from 85,000 people up. It comes from the roots.
It does.
So it's sort of like, if I can call it a tribal system, it's very much a tribal style system, right, where it comes from the people into the chiefs, and always called a chief minister, and so that's well documented, and, you know, the longest standing, you know, parliament in history, 1,000 plus years, and great. Singapore didn't start there. Singapore very much top down in 1965, which is political party thinking, systems level thinking. So strategic level thinking. In Singapore, you've got a place where you can go and see the island in 25 years' time. It's kind of mapped out.
Wow.
And it was mapped out from the beginning. It was designed from a blank sheet of paper in 1965. We don't have that luxury on the Isle of Man, because we've got a longer history, and we've got to respect that history. So history is an enabler and a disabler at that point. But there's things that we can learn from those system level governments that we could or not decide to apply. And that is things like strategic central thinking. That's things like having a research budget. And this has been one of my little pet kind of moments, because I'm not a researcher. I told you I don't have a PhD.
I've got plenty of them here.
Yeah, there are. But we don't have true research in its truest form. Like UK government spend $9 billion a year on research, and something in that region. So that's missing. And the challenge with that is then you don't have long range thinking, and I'm an operator, right? So I'm not saying strategic for the sake of strategic, but you need to have a general direction,
longer than the next election.
Yeah. So the island plan is that, and you know, but then you've got to commit to it. You've got to commit to that long range plan. If you say 100,000, then in my world of business, if you commit to something, we're in. Shaking hands all the way down the line. We're going to do everything we can to achieve that goal. And that's the challenge. So how do you get to, you know, Singapore, which designed its 25-year future, the Isle of Man, which has been around for 1,000+ years? How do you bring the system level thinking, strategic level thinking, and research, which is, again, long range thinking. If you think about it from a business point of view, you do research, then you do development, then you do deployment. Any product. And that's Databricks is the company I last represented as well.
Yeah, sure.
$62 billion, bigger than OpenAI, all of that stuff, right? They started off at Stanford at research. They were an open source program, and then they developed a commercial offering. And so I think there's this great opportunity, and I'm going to bring the biosphere in here, because one of the principles of biosphere is about being a living laboratory or research.
Yeah.
And talking about, creating a board for that biosphere, is that research and strategic thinking is really important. Yeah. So I think that combination of get stuff done now with long range thinking is system thinking with human thinking, and I think that's an opportunity for us to address that.
It's exciting to think what the biosphere stands for, and what we could do, and all sorts of projects like regenerative farming, and I don't know, you name it.
It's amazing.
I'm not sure wind farms are part of it, but
but you've got to look at the humans, community. So community, environment, and economy all working together on this thing called the planet, which is a biosphere. So this biosphere is a single point, that we are the only nation in the world of 195 nations that has UNESCO full island biosphere credentials. So I think it's a massive galvanizing point. And of course there are people who say, well, I don't like this bit, I don't like this, but great. That's actually good. Encourage the dissenters, encourage the conflict.
Yeah, how do we get support? Wider support. Yeah.
So I'm not just excited, but logically excited. Not just emotionally, but logically, attached to this. This makes sense. There's a $3 trillion finance market called, nature finance. There's a $1.3 trillion clean tech market with the 70% gap in product fit. That means those products don't exist.
Yeah.
There's organic farming, there's regenerative tourism, and we're sat as an island with this thing called biosphere as the only one in the world.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, it seems as though we're almost looking mile wide, inch deep. It would be good to have some specifics around it, but
and that's to promote the board, and that's the opportunity is to get the best from industry, across industries, the best from nature, the best from finance, the best from tourism, and bring them all in a room and say, okay, you have an opportunity to create that manual, that blueprint of what a nation biosphere is, because everyone else in the world is waiting for you to create it. So the success of the biosphere, in my mind, is, and there's multiple levels of this, but the highest level is when the second one becomes a full nation biosphere, and the third one, because then it's a thing. At the moment, it's an anomaly. We're the only one. When the second one comes, now UNESCO currently have 759 biosphere reserves around the world. It's 5% of the planet is covered by biosphere, and they've got ambitions to, for us to have that protection, if you like, but also that innovation and that learning for a wider.
Is there any available collaboration between those other biospheres and ourselves?
There already is.
Yeah.
So the biosphere team, which is a very small team, and big respect to Jackie and Brescia and the people who set it up, like Joe and Peter, and it's been going for, as you know, since 2014 or before that, actually. So there's a lot of people to thank. And I won't do it justice by trying to sort of ham it now, but they already collaborate with the UK. So where there's 7 biospheres in the UK, and we collaborate with them. And then people like Rachel Smith, who's the youth ambassador for UK, is from the Isle of Man. She's so
amazing.
So she goes to the European Man and Biosphere, as a volunteer, because she believes in it. So we've already got quite a big collaboration, and we've got a stakeholder partner group on the island. That's we just had our meeting last week, and that cross section across from industry. So there's a lot of collaboration. Yeah. The whole emphasis of biosphere is that we don't own it.
No, of course not.
It's something that we all collaborate towards, and so super exciting actually.
Yeah, no, great. Well, we look forward to hearing some exciting, great things from you guys. No pressure.
Well, from all of us.
Yeah.
So there's no pressure at all. I don't feel that pressure. When you say, thank you, Sharon, as well, because I don't feel that pressure because it's up to us as people of the island to embrace it or not.
Yes.
And that's again, this agency, it's a decision, isn't it? We all have choice.
Yeah, we do. So what's planned next?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. So I think a lot of emphasis on biosphere, and we talked a bit about that. So board selection and making sure our periodic review is in sight, and that we get we give ourselves the best chance of getting that review. From a personal point of view, a bit more mountain biking, I think. Really, thanks, Sharon.
Welcome.
Getting
See you out on the trails.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. And is there any particular source of reference, reading material, or any place you could send our listeners to go to learn more about you, the things you're up to, or even a source of inspiration, anything like that?
God, you just sent my brain in 1,000 different directions at the same time.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's a good question. If anyone wants to make any contact, the easiest way is just go to LinkedIn. I don't have a Facebook account.
You've got an enormous amount of followers, like 11,000 followers or something.
Yeah, something like that.
That's a super.
But I don't have a Facebook account. I'm going to give you the reasons why, because I know the island has a lot of Facebook.
Yeah,
Claire,
big. Yeah,
Claire and I grew up together. 17 and 15. So she was my social administrator.
There you go. So she's on Facebook and you are on LinkedIn.
And I don't need it.
No.
So I don't need to administer that part of my life. I just look after LinkedIn and use that as well.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah. So if I want to know where my friends are, I just say, Claire, where's such and such? And she'll go, he's
Wonderful.
So yeah. So LinkedIn is the easiest way of getting contact with me. And then in terms of inspiration, The Courage to Be Disliked is a book that's in Waterstones. I think it's been around for a while now. It's sold about 10 million copies. But it comes from the psychologist Alfred Adler, and that is, if I had read that book before I had the kids, they would be even better than they already are. The idea of being able to guide someone and coach someone as a positive psychology effect. That book's incredible.
Yeah,
I'd recommend that to everyone. That's my number one. I've got
the
whole Stephen Covey and all that kind of stuff. All the other self-help books, if you like, from the back to the beginning of them. But that's an amazing book.
Wonderful.
Have you read that?
No, I haven't. No, but I will. Thank you very much for the recommendation.
Cool. Yeah, it's a great one.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for making it out to St. John's and for your time today. It's been absolutely fascinating. Lovely to meet you.
Yeah, likewise.
No,
thank you for inviting me as well. And let's do it again sometime.
No, great. Thank you.
Right. Cheers, Sharon.
Thanks for listening this far. I hope you found this episode to be valuable. If so, I'd like to ask you for a small favour. Would you please go to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review, because that's one of the best ways for others to find the series, and please send a link to the podcast to 3 friends or colleagues who know they'll find it helpful. That way we can spread the word about how great a place the Isle of Man is to live and work, and help spread some positivity. Thanks again for tuning in and being part of our great community. I'll see you next time. Island Influencers is a fortnightly podcast. Make sure you don't miss the next episode by clicking the follow button on your podcast platform. A big thanks to the producer Catherine Watts from Social Cues and editor Martin Bamford at Bear Content, and thank you for listening.